They called her garbage before Noah Walker ever saw her breathe. 30 miles above the dead mining world of Karth. 9. The garbage star turned in silence, a man-made moon of broken freighters, cracked satellites, burned-out engines, and forgotten cargo pods spinning slowly through the dark. Every few seconds, its industrial jaws opened and swallowed another piece of somebody's past. Metal shrieked. Magnets groaned. Blue furnace light pulsed through the debris field like the heartbeat of a dying machine. Noah sat alone in the cockpit of the Marauder Saint, one boot braced against a loose panel, one hand on the manual stick, listening to his oxygen filter cough like an old smoker. The display above him blinked yellow. Fuel at 11%. Cabin heat unstable. Hull pressure acceptable, which meant only 2 leaks instead of 3. He gave the console a tired look. "Don't get dramatic on me now," he muttered. His voice sounded small inside the helmet. He had come for scrap, not miracles. A salvage license, a rusted ship, and a debt notice from 3 stations back did not leave a man room for noble choices. The scanner swept across the trash ring, tagging what could still be sold. Copper coils, reactor shielding, a medical drone with one arm. Then the screen glitched. A black icon appeared where no salvage tag should have been. Noah leaned closer. The text loaded one word at a time, cold and official. Royal Bio-Waste. Do not recover. He stared at it. Royal meant expensive. Bio-Waste meant trouble. Do not recover meant somebody powerful wanted it gone. The smart move was to turn away, mark the coordinates as hazardous, and pretend he had never seen it. Noah's thumb hovered over the delete key. Then something tapped the inside of the container. Not loud. Not even enough to trip the motion alarm. Just a soft sound through the comm pickup. Tap, tap, tap. Noah stopped breathing for a second. The container was drifting toward the crusher mouth, a coffin-shaped capsule wrapped in frost and warning lights. Its outer glass was cracked white from deep freeze burn. Inside, there was fog, shadow, and the faint outline of a hand pressed against the pane. Blue skin, long fingers. Alive. No, Noah whispered, though he was already moving. He fired the grapples. The Marauder Saint lurched hard enough to make every loose bolt rattle. The tether caught the capsule 6 feet from the crusher field. Warning alarms screamed across his dash. Illegal recovery. Restricted material. Automated penalty pending. Noah ignored all of it. He dragged the capsule into his cargo bay, sealed the doors, and ran down the narrow corridor with a plasma cutter in one hand and a thermal coat in the other. Up close, the warning stamp looked freshly burned into the metal. Discarded air. Failed crown blood. The words made no sense to him. The breathing did. Noah cut the lock. Cold vapor rolled over his boots. The woman inside collapsed forward before the lid fully opened, and he caught her as carefully as if she were made of glass. Her skin was turquoise beneath the frost. Her silver hair tangled across her face. Her eyes shut so tightly it looked like sleep had become a prison. She weighed almost nothing. That scared him more than the alarms. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders and felt one weak breath touch his wrist. Then her eyes opened. Violet light, dim but alive. She looked at him like she expected a cage, a price, a hand reaching for ownership. Noah only backed away and raised both palms. "You're safe," he said, though the ship lights were turning red around them. Her lips moved. The translator struggled, clicked, then caught the whisper. "You should have left me where they threw me." Before Noah could answer, the entire cargo bay flashed white. 3 sleek warships dropped from hyperspace outside his viewport, their hulls black against the furnace glow of the garbage star. The comm cracked open with a voice smooth as ice. "Salvage vessel. Surrender the discarded woman. She is not a citizen. She is not a prisoner. She is property marked for erasure." Noah looked down at the trembling alien woman in his coat. Then he looked at the approaching ships. His hand closed around the manual controls. "Funny," he said quietly. "She looked alive to me." Noah did not answer the warship immediately. He reached across the cargo bay wall and slapped the manual seal with the heel of his hand. The inner door dropped between him and the woman just as the ship trembled under a targeting scan. Red light crawled over the floor. The Marauder Saint was old enough to have personality, and right now its personality was pure panic. Collision alarms chirped. The oxygen pump stuttered. Somewhere behind the panels, a coolant line hissed like an angry snake. "Saint," Noah said, climbing back toward the cockpit. Tell me something encouraging. The ship computer replied in its flat, exhausted voice. Encouragement unavailable. 3 military vessels have locked onto this ship. Estimated survival without compliance, 12%. That is better than 0. Not by much. Noah dropped into the pilot chair and pulled the cracked restraint across his chest. Outside the viewport, the 3 Varelian ships spread out like black knives around the furnace glow of the garbage star. Their engines made no sound in space, but his hull felt their gravity wake, a deep pressure through every bolt. The commander's voice returned across the channel. Human pilot, you are interfering with royal disposal law. Release the marked biological asset and your violation will be reduced. Noah glanced at the cargo monitor. The alien woman had pushed herself upright against the wall. His coat hung around her shoulders. Her face was pale, her glowing eyes fixed on the camera as if she knew he was watching. Around her throat, a thin metal collar blinked red. Not decoration, not medical, a tracker. Noah looked back at the warships. I found a living person in a death capsule, he said. That makes this a rescue. A pause followed. Then the commander spoke softer. She is not a person under Varelian law. Noah felt something cold settle behind his ribs. He had heard that kind of sentence before, on border stations, in refugee lines, from men in clean uniforms who never had to look at what their orders did. He flipped 3 safety covers open. The ship computer warned, manual burn through debris field is not recommended. Neither is leaving somebody to freeze. He punched the throttle. The Marauder Saint kicked forward, dragging sparks of loose metal behind it, and dove toward the rotating trash ring. The warships followed. Searchlights swept through the wreckage. Noah flew between broken freighter ribs, dead cargo tanks, and old engine bells wide enough to swallow a house. His hands moved by instinct, not grace. Left thruster. Reverse burst. Nose down. The ship scraped a rusted beam, and the sound screamed through the cabin. In the cargo bay, Lyra grabbed a rail and held on. You cannot outrun them, she said through the open internal channel. Her voice was weak, but it still carried the shape of command. Probably not, Noah replied. I am more of an out-stubborn kind of guy. She stared at him, confused by a courage that sounded almost like bad judgment. Another blast of light crossed the viewport. The collar at her throat blinked faster, feeding their position to the hunters. Noah saw it on the monitor and understood. Can you remove that thing? Lyra's fingers touched the collar. For the first time, fear broke through her composure. It opens only by royal order. Noah turned the ship sideways through a gap no sane pilot would choose. Then we cheat. He routed power from the cabin heaters into a magnetic pulse coil, an ugly repair trick that had once cost him a license and saved 4 miners. The cockpit temperature dropped fast. Frost crept along the glass. Saint, dump the pulse through cargo deck 2. That may disable life support. For how long? Unknown. Noah breathed out slowly. Do it anyway. The lights died. For 3 seconds, there was only darkness, cold, and the distant groan of metal. Then a blue pulse rolled through the ship. Lyra cried out, not from pain, but shock. The red light on her collar flickered once, twice, and went black. Outside, the warships overshot their turn, their scanners suddenly blind. Noah brought the Marauder Saint into the hollow shell of a dead transport and killed every engine. Silence swallowed them. He sat frozen in the dark, watching the enemy lights drift past the cracked viewport. In the cargo bay, Lyra touched the dead collar with trembling fingers. Why would you risk your air for me? Noah looked at the oxygen gauge falling by the second and gave a tired half. Smile no one could see, because you were still breathing. Then, far beyond the debris field, a new signal appeared on the screen. Not 3 ships. 30. 30 signals filled the screen like cold stars waking up at once. Noah stared at them without moving. The Marauder Saint floated silent inside the dead transport shell, engines dark, heat dropping, oxygen crawling downward 1 decimal at a time. Outside, Varelian searchlights passed through the wreckage in slow white bars, touching torn metal, broken antennae, and cargo containers that had been empty for 100 years. Inside, every sound felt too loud. The tick of cooling pipes, the soft rasp of Noah breathing through a damaged filter, the faint shift of the alien woman in the cargo bay. That is not a patrol, Lyra said through the internal channel. Her voice had changed. Less fear, more memory. Noah looked at the tactical display. 30 ships. Tight formation. Military spacing. Then what is it? She did not answer right away. On the cargo monitor, she stood carefully, one hand braced against the wall, his thermal coat still around her shoulders. The dead collar hung at her throat like a black ring. A recovery fleet, she said. For me? Noah asked. Lyra gave a thin, bitter smile. No. For proof that I am gone. The words sat in the dark cockpit heavier than the cold. Noah pulled up the public channel feeds. Static broke apart into dozens of alien broadcasts, all speaking at once in clipped, official tones. The translator struggled, then flattened them into English. Discarded air confirmed active. Human salvage vessel in unlawful possession. Biological asset to be reclaimed. Witnesses to be contained. Noah lowered the volume. Not because he was scared of the words. Because he did not want her to hear them again. She heard anyway. Lyra moved toward the cockpit, slow but steady, her bare feet quiet on the metal grating. When the door opened, she stood there under the emergency light, too graceful for the wreck around them and too exhausted to hide it. Her violet eyes locked onto Noah. Give me back. He blinked. What? Open a channel. Tell them you were confused. Tell them you found me frozen and did not understand. They may let you live. Noah turned fully in the chair. Frost had gathered in his eyelashes. His fingers were stiff on the controls. You are asking me to hand you over to people who sealed you in a disposal capsule. I am asking you not to throw your life into their furnace for a stranger. Too late. I already ruined my day. Her expression tightened, almost angry, almost broken. You think this is kindness. It is not. It is arrogance. You humans see something suffering and believe you can fix the universe with a code and a foolish promise. Noah absorbed that quietly. The ship groaned around them. Somewhere outside, a scanner beam swept close enough to make the hull lights flicker. He could have argued. He could have told her he was not trying to fix the universe. But words were cheap, and she had lived under people who dressed cruelty in beautiful speeches. So he reached to the side panel, opened a storage slot, and took out a dented metal canteen. He set it on the floor between them, then pushed it gently with his boot until it stopped near her feet. You can hate me after you drink. Lyra looked at the canteen as if it were a trap. Why? Noah glanced at the oxygen gauge. 16 minutes. Maybe less if the leak worsened. Because scared people get thirsty too. For a moment, the fleet outside vanished from her face. Something younger looked through. Something that had once waited behind palace doors with dry lips and no one coming. She knelt, lifted the canteen with both hands, and drank. Not much. Just enough to prove she had chosen to stay alive. Then the cockpit speaker cracked open by itself. A new transmission pushed through every blocked channel, older than the fleet, older than the wreckage, so deep the ship's frame seemed to remember it. The translator printed 3 words across the windshield. Crown blood detected. Lyra stopped breathing. Noah looked at her. Is that good? Her hand tightened around the canteen. Far beyond the debris field, something enormous began to answer. The answer came as a vibration before it became sound. It moved through the dead transport shell, through the seat beneath Noah, through the canteen inn. Lyra's hand, low and ancient, like a cathedral bell buried under miles of ice. The tactical screen lost its grid. For one impossible second, every piece of wreckage outside glowed with thin violet lines, as if the garbage field had veins. Noah stared through the cracked windshield. Old ship bones drifted in the dark around them. Broken carriers, hollow cruisers, engine rings large enough to circle a town. He had flown past them thinking they were ruins. Now they looked back. Lyra, he said carefully, what did your blood just wake up? She stepped closer to the glass. The emergency light painted her face red on one side and blue on the other. Nothing, she whispered. It never answered me before. Outside, the Varelian recovery fleet changed formation. 30 ships pivoted toward the same distant point beyond the debris field. Their commander's voice cut into the channel, no longer smooth. All vessels, suppress the signal. Do not allow the human craft to leave the bone field. Noah looked at her. Bone field? Lyra nodded, eyes fixed on the glowing wrecks. This is where the first Varelian kings buried the Mercy Armada. They said it would return only for a worthy crown. Noah gave a dry little laugh and pulled his hands over the controls. Great. We are parked in your family cemetery. You do not understand. If that fleet thinks I am worthy, The Dominion will panic. If it thinks I am not, it may still panic. That sounds like politics with extra steps. The transport shell shook. A scanner beam found them. White light flooded the cockpit. The old ship computer spoke at once. Concealment failed. Incoming capture net. Recommend immediate movement. Noah punched the ignition. The Marauder's Saint coughed, sputtered, then kicked free from the dead transport in a shower of frost and metal dust. The first Varelian net opened behind them like a silver web, wide as a football field. Noah pushed the ship down through a canyon of wreckage. Dead hulls flashed past both sides, so close the proximity alarms gave up and became one continuous scream. Lyra grabbed the back of his chair. Turn starboard. I see the gap. That is not a gap. That is a collapsed fuel spine. Then we will be polite and not touch it. The Marauder Saint rolled sideways. A shattered cruiser filled the windshield, then vanished beneath them. Noah flew by feel, by pressure, by the old human stupidity that sometimes looked exactly like faith. His knuckles whitened. Sweat slid cold down his temple. Behind them, the recovery ships hesitated at the narrow path. Too large, too perfect, too afraid to scrape their royal paint against forgotten bones. Lyra watched him with growing disbelief. No trained pilot would fly this route. Good thing I am a salvage man. That was not praise. I am taking it as praise. A pulse struck the debris ahead, not an explosion, but a clean wave of force that scattered metal into their path. Noah cut thrust. The ship dropped. For 3 seconds they fell through open dark, silent and weightless. Lyra's hand slipped from the chair. Noah caught her wrist without looking, held tight, then fired the lower engines. The Marauder Saint skimmed under a broken carrier and burst into a wider pocket of space. The garbage star burned behind them. The fleet spread out ahead. No way back. No safe road forward. Then the ancient signal sounded again. This time, the largest wreck in the bone field lit from bow to stern, its dead windows filling with violet fire. Across the windshield, new words appeared, not from the Varelians, not from Noah's ship, but from something that had been waiting in the dark for 900 years. Mercy protocol listening. Lyra covered her mouth. Noah kept one hand on the controls and stared at the waking giant. Lyra, he said softly, I think it wants you to speak. Lyra did not speak at first. She stood behind Noah's chair with one hand pressed to the cracked windshield, watching the ancient carrier glow in the dark like a sleeping city remembering its name. The words Mercy Protocol, listening floated across the glass in pale violet letters, steady and patient. Noah could feel her shaking through the floor. Not from cold this time. From history. From every lesson that had told her she was broken. Say something, Noah whispered. Lyra swallowed, and for a second the proud alien woman looked smaller than the coat around her shoulders. I do not know what it wants. Outside, the Varelian fleet widened its formation. Their commander cut into the channel, voice sharp with fear disguised as authority. Lyra Voss, you are forbidden to answer that relic. By order of the Dominion, you will remain silent. Noah glanced back at her. Well, that makes me think answering is probably the right move. She almost smiled. Almost. Then the fleet released a pressure field. It did not burn or explode. It squeezed. The Marauder Saint groaned, as if invisible hands had wrapped around its ribs. Warning lights snapped from red to white. The windshield iced at the edges. A seam opened somewhere beneath the cockpit floor, and the oxygen gauge dropped so fast Noah felt the change in his lungs before the alarm confirmed it. Cabin pressure failing, the ship computer announced. Emergency masks available, 1. Noah looked at the panel. One mask hung beside his shoulder, old, yellowed, and connected to a tank with maybe 12 minutes of air. Lyra saw it too. Take it, she said immediately. You are the pilot. Noah pulled the mask free, checked the seal, and turned toward her. Exactly. I need my passenger conscious enough to yell ancient royal passwords at a ghost fleet. Noah. It was the first time she had said his name without suspicion. The sound caught him harder than the pressure field. He stepped close, placed the mask over her mouth and nose, and tightened the strap before she could push him away. Her violet eyes widened. You foolish man. His breath came thin now. Every inhale had edges. I have been called worse by people with less impressive eyes. She grabbed his wrist, not gently, not cruelly, just desperate. Why do you keep doing this? Noah looked past her, toward the glowing carrier and the 30 ships waiting to erase what they feared. The cockpit was getting colder. His fingers were numb. Because when I found you, everyone else had already made their decision. I figured you deserved at least one person who had not. Lyra stared at him over the mask. The emergency light moved across her face in slow pulses, red, blue, like two worlds arguing in silence. Then she turned toward the ancient carrier. Her hand rose. The markings under her skin glimmered faintly, not like a weapon, not like a crown, but like dawn beneath water. "Mercy Protocol," she said, her voice trembling through the mask. "I am Lyra Voss. I do not command you." The carrier brightened. The whole bone field answered with a low harmonic sound. Noah braced himself against the console, fighting to stay upright. Lyra looked at him once, and whatever fear remained in her changed shape. "I ask you to witness him," she whispered. The violet light surged through every wreck around them. The fleet outside went silent. Across the windshield, new words appeared. "Witness accepted. Human mercy confirmed." The words stayed on the windshield long after the light faded. "Human mercy confirmed." Noah tried to read them twice, but the letters blurred at the edges. The cockpit tilted under his boots. His lungs pulled at the thin air and found almost nothing waiting. Lyra saw his knees bend before he did. She tore the emergency mask from her own face and pushed it toward him. Noah shook his head once, stubborn even when pale. "You need it." Her answer came low and fierce. "So do you." She forced the mask over his mouth, then pressed one hand against the cracked console to steady herself as the ship rocked beneath another pressure wave. The ancient carrier outside continued to glow, but it had not moved. Not yet. The Mercy Armada was awake, listening, watching, judging, and that somehow frightened the Varelians more than any weapon. Their commander opened a wide channel, his voice tight enough to snap. "Relic intelligence, reject the witness. The human is an unlawful scavenger. The Voss heir is defective by royal decree. Her bloodline failed the crown trial." Lyra flinched at the old words. Defective. Failed. Waste. They entered the cockpit like cold smoke. Noah pulled the mask aside just enough to speak. "What trial?" Lyra did not look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the great violet ship beyond the glass. "When I was 12, they placed me in the Hall of Sovereigns. They told me to command the Armada. They told me to prove I could rule." Her fingers closed. Around the back of his chair. "I was supposed to order a simulated strike against a colony that had rebelled. No people were real, they said. Only numbers. Only targets." Noah breathed quietly through the mask. "And you refused." A humorless smile touched her mouth. "I asked if the children in the simulation were frightened." That was the moment the hall went silent. Outside, lines of violet fire spread from the ancient carrier into other wrecks, one after another, like stars being lit by hand. Lyra continued, softer now. "The council said a true crown must not hesitate. My family said mercy was a flaw in the blood. So they locked the Armada away and built a throne out of shame. For years they tested me again. Every time, I failed the same way." Noah looked up at her, eyes tired but clear. "You failed at becoming cruel." The sentence landed gently, and that made it worse. Lyra had survived orders, accusations, exile, and a freezing coffin in space, but kindness spoken plainly almost broke her. The markings beneath her skin brightened, thin rivers of violet and silver along her wrists and throat. The ship computer spoke in a trembling burst of static. "External systems connecting. Unknown authority requesting memory archive." Noah frowned. "What memory archive?" The windshield changed before Lyra could answer. Their own images appeared in pale light. Noah cutting open the capsule. Noah wrapping his coat around her. Noah giving her water. Noah placing the only oxygen mask over her face. Every small act replayed without music, without speeches, without glory. Just a human in a failing ship choosing, again and again, not to look away. The Varelian channel went silent. Then the ancient carrier spoke, its voice deep enough to make every bolt in the Marauder Saint hum. "Crown trial complete. Mercy is not weakness. Mercy is command restraint." Lyra stared at the words as if the universe had finally translated her soul into a language others could not deny. Noah leaned back, exhausted, the mask fogging with each breath. "Congratulations," he whispered. "Turns out you were not broken." Beyond the glass, The first ship of the Mercy Armada opened its eyes. The Mercy Armada opened like a silent cathedral in space. Plates the size of city blocks separated without sound, spilling violet light across the bone field, and every Varelian vessel froze as if the dark itself had ordered them still. Noah sat slumped in the pilot chair with the oxygen mask against his face, watching impossible history unfold through a cracked windshield. Lyra stood beside him, one hand on the console, the other pressed over the place where the dead collar had marked her throat. She did not look like garbage now. She looked like a question the galaxy had spent 900 years trying not to answer. The ancient carrier sent one more pulse through the debris field, and the Marauder Saint shuddered as a holographic chamber formed around them. Not a room exactly, a projection. Tall seats of pale light rose in a circle, filled one by one with the faces of the Galactic Council. Varelian nobles in silver masks. Trade lords with jeweled, breathing rigs. Military judges wrapped in blue ceremonial armor. Their eyes turned first to Lyra, then to Noah, and the temperature in the cockpit seemed to drop. A council magistrate spoke in a voice polished smooth by centuries of never being interrupted. Emergency session acknowledged. The Voss heir has activated restricted sovereign technology while in the custody of an unauthorized human salvager. Noah pulled the mask aside and coughed once into his sleeve. Custody is a generous word for trying to stay alive in a junkyard. No one laughed. Lyra did not smile either, but something in her shoulders changed, as if his stubbornness had become a hand at her back. The Varelian commander appeared in the central light, tall, immaculate, terrified beneath all that gold trim. The human contaminated the crown trial. He interfered with royal property, disabled a lawful tracker, and manipulated the defective heir into triggering a relic response. The word defective moved through the chamber like a familiar knife. Lyra closed her eyes for one breath. Noah heard it. He heard the old hurt inside the silence. He leaned forward, fingers still numb on the armrest. You keep using that word like it means something. Official. The commander turned his cold gaze on him. You are a scrap pilot from a border species with no standing in this matter. That is true, Noah said. I am also the only person here who opened the box. The council fell quiet. The ship computer, barely functioning, projected the memory archive again without being asked. The capsule drifting toward the crusher. The warning stamp. The frozen hand touching glass. Noah cutting the lock. His coat around her shoulders. Water placed near her feet. The oxygen mask pushed over her face. Not one grand speech. Not one heroic pose. Just choices. Small, inconvenient, human choices. The magistrate watched until the final image faded. Human Noah Walker, he said at last. Why did you preserve an individual legally discarded by her own dominion? Noah looked at Lyra. She was staring at him now, not like a queen, not like an heir, but like someone afraid of the answer because it might heal something too deep. He put the mask back against his mouth, took one thin breath, and spoke slowly. Because law can be wrong. Because labels are not souls. Because when someone is still reaching from the dark, you do not ask if they are worth saving. You reach back. The violet light inside the Mercy Armada surged so bright that every council face flickered. Lyra's markings burned softly beneath her skin, silver and purple like dawn through storm clouds. The magistrate's voice lost its polish. The Armada recognizes his statement as sovereign testimony. The Varelian commander stepped back. For the first time, the galaxy saw fear on the face of the people who had thrown her away. The fear did not arrive as a scream. It arrived as silence. Across the holographic council chamber, nobles who had once signed disposal orders with jeweled fingers now sat very still, their perfect masks reflecting violet light from a fleet they could no longer control. The Mercy Armada was not attacking. That made it worse. Its thousands of dormant systems had woken and connected to every public channel in the sector, every embassy relay, every court archive, every quiet little room where powerful people had hidden ugly decisions behind beautiful laws. Noah watched the council faces flicker above the cracked console, too tired to stand, too stubborn to look away. Lyra stood beside him with the dead collar in one hand. She held it gently, not because it deserved gentleness, but because she had learned something from the human who opened her coffin. Power did not have to crush what it touched. The Varelian commander tried to speak first. This is unlawful transmission of classified royal material. Lyra lifted her eyes. The room dimmed around her. No, she said. This is memory. The Armada obeyed. One by one, images appeared in the air. Not battles. Not secrets of weapons. Not revenge. Just records. A child marked unfit for labor and left at an outer moon facility. An elderly worker removed from citizenship after an injury. A translator sold as property because her accent offended a noble house. Names. Faces. Breathing people reduced to words that made them easier to throw away. Defective. Excess. Asset. Waste. The council chamber became a graveyard of paperwork. Noah's jaw tightened. He had seen poverty on Earth. He had seen mines cut corners and stations ration medicine. But this was colder. This was cruelty with signatures. Lyra turned toward the council magistrate. Her voice did not rise. That was why it carried. For 900 years, my people taught that mercy made rulers weak. So they built prisons, markets, and disposal laws. They called it order. They called it efficiency. Then a human salvage pilot with 11% fuel and one working oxygen mask showed more courage than every throne in this chamber. Noah looked down, uncomfortable under the weight of it. He had not meant to become a symbol. He had meant to keep one person breathing. The ancient carrier seemed to understand. Its lights softened around him, warm as sunrise through a dirty window. The magistrate's face trembled in the projection. What is your command, crown bearer? The title moved through the chamber like thunder held behind glass. Lyra looked at Noah. He shook his head once, small and almost invisible. Not vengeance. Not this way. She understood. Maybe she had understood before he moved. She faced the galaxy. My first command is restraint. The Mercy Armada spread across the debris field, not firing, not chasing, simply surrounding every Varelian warship in perfect silence. Engines failed without sparks. Weapons powered down without force. Locked doors opened on prison barges across 3 systems. Hidden archives copied themselves into public view. Trade routes used by flesh merchants went dark. Accounts tied to disposal colonies froze in an instant. The galaxy did not fear Lyra because she destroyed worlds. It feared her because she could have, and chose not to. In the cockpit, Noah finally let his head rest against the seat. His breathing steadied inside the mask. Lyra stepped close and placed the dead collar on the console between them. They wanted my return to be a warning, she whispered. Noah looked at the endless violet ships outside, then at the woman who had survived being erased. Maybe it is. Her eyes stayed on the council as every hidden name continued appearing in light. Yes, she said softly, but not the kind they expected. The council did not end with a cheer. It ended with doors opening. Across 3 systems, detention barges unlocked their cells and cargo holds once marked as inventory filled with voices that had almost forgotten how to say their own names. Medical stations received emergency authority from the Mercy Armada and began treating people without asking which empire had stamped their papers. On trade worlds, market boards went dark. In royal courts, polished officials stared at evidence they could not bury anymore. Lyra Voss watched it all from the cockpit of the Marauder Saint, silent beneath the violet glow of ships older than every throne that had mocked her. Noah sat beside her, wrapped in a foil thermal blanket, the oxygen mask resting loose in his lap. Color had returned to his face, but not much. He looked like a man who had argued with space and barely won. The ship computer announced cabin pressure stabilized at 74%, then added, almost proudly, that only 6 systems were still failing. Noah gave the ceiling a tired look. That is practically luxury. Lyra turned to him, and for the first time since he had cut open the capsule, there was no wall in her eyes. No crown. No trial. No ancient judgment burning between them. Just the woman he had found breathing inside the cold. You should be angry, she said. Noah blinked slowly. At who? At me. At this. At being dragged into a war of names and laws you never asked to understand. He looked through the windshield at the Mercy Armada surrounding the garbage star in perfect stillness. The old crusher had stopped. No more metal jaws. No more coffins rolling toward furnace light. Just silence, wide and clean. I was angry, he said. Then I got busy. That almost broke her smile free. Almost. The holographic council chamber flickered one last time. The magistrate appeared smaller now, as if the light itself had stopped flattering him. Crown Bearer Lyra Voss, he said. The council requests your terms. Lyra stepped forward. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Every discarded person will be named. Every sealed archive will be opened. Every law that turns the living into property will be suspended until reviewed by those it harmed. And the Varelian Dominion will surrender control of all disposal colonies by sunrise, Earth Standard Time. The magistrate swallowed. And if they refuse? Lyra looked at the warships floating powerless outside. Then the galaxy will watch them refuse mercy in public. That was all. No threat could have been heavier. One by one, the council lights bowed out. The cockpit returned to its dim red alarms and cold metal. Noah let out a slow breath. You know, for a woman who said she could not command, that sounded a lot like command. Lyra looked down at the dead collar on the console. She picked it up, opened her hand, and let it drift toward the airlock chute. The small ring vanished into space, turning once in violet light before the dark took it. No, she said softly. That was restraint. Hours later, when the first rescue ships arrived, nobody found a queen on a throne. They found a pale human salvage pilot asleep in his chair and a turquoise-skinned woman standing guard beside him, his old coat still around her shoulders. Outside, the Mercy Armada waited without firing a single shot. And all across the galaxy, frightened rulers learned the same lesson at the same time. Humanity had not given Lyra power. It had reminded her what power was for.